In June 1991, India had just 3 weeks of foreign currency left, 3 weeks before the country couldn't pay for another barrel of oil or another ship of imports. This wasn't a company's stock chart collapsing. It was an entire government running out of dollars, so short on cash that it flew its own gold out of the country just to keep the lights on. By the end of this video, you'll see exactly how a nation 3 weeks from default rebuilt itself into an economy sitting on one of the largest currency reserves on Earth, and why that turnaround still comes with an unanswered question. The crisis had been building for years. Iraq's invasion of Kuwait in August 1990 sent global oil prices spiking, and India imported most of the fuel it burned. That same war forced Air India to evacuate roughly 170,000 Indian workers out of Kuwait over 63 days, a Guinness World Record airlift, and a sudden stop to the remittance income those workers sent home. At the same time, India's own government was spending far more than it collected in taxes, financing the gap by borrowing abroad and courting high-interest deposits from Indians living overseas. When confidence cracked in 1990 and 1991, foreign lenders and depositors alike started pulling their money back out. The politics were falling apart at the same time as the money. Prime Minister Chandra Shekhar resigned in March 1991 and stayed on only as caretaker. In the middle of the election that followed, on May 21, 1991, former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated at a campaign rally. Into that vacuum, on June 21, a semi-retired 70-year-old politician named P.V. Narasimha Rao was sworn in as Prime Minister, just as the reserves hit their lowest point. By the fiscal year ending in March 1991, India's central government was running a fiscal deficit of 8.4% of GDP, nearly double the level most economists consider sustainable for a developing economy. Its current account deficit, the gap between what the country earned and spent abroad, reached 3.1% of GDP by June. For most of the 1980s, both gaps had been plugged with foreign borrowing and short-term NRI deposits. By 1991, that borrowing well had run dry, and India was spending money it didn't have, on a scale it could no longer keep financing. By January 1991, all of India's foreign exchange reserves, the dollars, euros, and other hard currency the country held to pay its bills abroad, added up to just $1.2 billion. That was meant to back an entire nation's imports, debt payments, and oil purchases, and it was falling by the week. With the treasury nearly empty, the Reserve Bank of India took a step it had never taken before. Over 10 days in May 1991, it flew 67 tons of the country's gold reserves out of India on chartered planes, 47 tons to the Bank of England in London, 20 tons to the Union Bank of Switzerland, pledged as collateral so foreign banks would lend India the cash to survive the next few weeks. The operation was kept quiet at first. When it became public, it landed as a political shock in a country that had prized economic self-reliance since independence. That pledged gold raised $600 million. It wasn't a sale. India later reclaimed every ounce once the immediate danger passed, but for a country independent barely 4 decades, shipping its gold reserves abroad to keep the government solvent was as much a national humiliation as it was a financial rescue. Weeks later, the Reserve Bank devalued the rupee in 2 steps, 9% on July 1, then another 11% on July 3, deliberately testing how markets reacted before committing to the full cut. In just 72 hours, the rupee lost roughly 18 to 19% of its value against the dollar. Overnight, every dollar of oil, machinery, or fertilizer India imported cost nearly a fifth more in rupee terms, but Indian exports instantly became cheaper for the rest of the world to buy. To secure a $2.2 billion loan from the IMF, India agreed to a package of structural reforms it had resisted for decades. Presenting the budget that carried them, Finance Minister Manmohan Singh told Parliament that no power on earth could stop an idea whose time had come. Almost overnight, India scrapped industrial licensing, the requirement that companies get government permission before expanding or launching new products, for every industry except 18. It raised the automatic approval limit for foreign investment to 51% in priority sectors, and began cutting the import tariffs that had walled off Indian industry from the rest of the world for over 40 years. The results compounded for more than 3 decades. According to World Bank data, India's total economic output was $270 billion in 1991. By 2000 it had grown to $468 billion. By 2010, past $1.6 trillion, as newly opened sectors like software services and telecommunications expanded rapidly. By 2024, it stood at $3.76 trillion, nearly 14 times larger than the economy that once needed a gold airlift just to keep functioning. That growth reached further than corporate balance sheets. By the Indian government's own multidimensional poverty measure, tracking health, education, and living standards together,
not just income. 55.3% of Indians were considered poor in the 2005-06 survey. By the 2019-21 survey, that figure had fallen to just under 15%, according to the government's own NITI Aayog think tank, which tracks the measure across 3 national health surveys spanning those 15 years.
Today, the same central bank that once pledged its goal to survive is sitting on $674 billion in reserves, more than 500 times the buffer it held in January 1991, enough to cover well over a year of imports instead of 3 weeks. That pile lets the RBI step into currency markets and smooth out sharp swings in the rupee, something it simply couldn't afford to do in 1991.
But not every number moved in India's favor. After the 1991 devaluation, roughly 23 rupees bought $1. As of this week, it takes nearly 96 rupees to buy that same dollar. The economy behind the currency grew almost 14-fold, the currency itself just kept getting weaker.
That buffer wasn't just theoretical. In 2013, when the US Federal Reserve signaled it would pull back stimulus, foreign capital rushed out of emerging markets, and the rupee collapsed from about 55 to nearly 69 per dollar in a few months, a period traders still call the taper tantrum. The new RBI governor, Raghuram Rajan, stopped the slide by launching a special deposit scheme for overseas Indians that pulled in more than $30 billion within weeks. India built its $674 billion reserve pile for one reason: to never again stand 3 weeks from default. But economists now debate a different risk entirely. When a central bank holds that much foreign capital, much of it can leave just as fast as it arrived, and a reserve built to survive one kind of crisis isn't automatically built for the next kind. Nobody sitting inside the Reserve Bank in June 1991 could have told you what would test the country's reserves next. It turned out to be a taper tantrum 2 decades later, not another gold airlift. 35 years and $674 billion on, nobody can tell you what tests it next either.